What if I'm wrong about everything and Bitcoin is not just putting in a local high here, but it's putting in a macro high, and it is going to go down to the depths of hell and never return ever to its current glories? Well, today is the topic of the day, as you probably could guess if you have a brain. And there are two major things that I'd be looking for to really confirm that this current segment of the market is not just correction, but actually a macro reversal. I want to preface this whole video by saying I don't think that is actually going to happen, but as always, as an investor or trader, have to have some sort of, objectively definable way to understand when, well, the former opinion is wrong and it is time to change. Anyways, other than that, I have a big question out there to the Greeks of the world. I absolutely need to know, because I was watching Troy, Fall of a City on Netflix last night, very high quality streaming service, and something occurred there that I didn't actually expect or didn't know about before. And apparently Zeus was black, as is Achilles as well. And now here's the thing. I always knew that Jesus was black Jesus, of course, but I need to know, I absolutely need to know from some verified sources out there, is this accurate? I need to know. And with that said, we can just jump right in the chart of the day, which would be this one, which actually spurred upon this question. So some people have been bringing up the accumulation distribution indicator chart, which is a chart that I usually view at the end and very beginning of each and every month, and have analyzed that the slope mid-month here, I should add, is actually quite negative. And anytime that we have seen the slope change, basically shift from up to down in the green zone, these have correlated with major macro cycle tops before. In fact, anytime that we have seen it, the top was basically already in within about a month or two spread of that shift, and Bitcoin was pretty much down only for the next year or two after that. And as of right now, we do see that there is a massive downside signature, which kind of, again, spurred upon the question of this video. Now, first things first, I would say I've made the mistake in the past of looking at this indicator, at any moment before the end of the month, because it can change around a lot. It's essentially just a net delta of buys and sells. And in this case, right now it is down, as you would imagine. A lot of people are just kind of taking profit around, prior all-time highs for Bitcoin here. So it kind of makes sense to me that we do see that. So ultimately, is it a concern? I guess it's possible in the back of the mind there, but it's a long month left to go with a lot that can happen in between, as we'll go over. But it does kind of validate the question at hand. So first thing first, what I would be looking at in order to confirm, or at least give a strong indication that things are shifting around, and this is not just a corrective period, but a macro reversal period, would be if this chart over here does get negated. So I've gone over this chart a couple times. It is the Bitcoin production costs, sort of like the basement cost to produce Bitcoins. And as you can see right now, the basement price would be the bottom side of this red channel, which is basically $30,000. The thing is that in about a month from now, or actually less than a month from now, we're going to see the halving. And during the halving, as you can see over here, the last time that we did have this was back in May of 2020. That basement price is going to double. It's going to double. You can see right here, went from about 4,100 to, well, actually 9,000. So it more than doubled. If we go back to the halving before that, it was back here again. This one actually more than doubled as well, from 350 all the way up to 700. Actually, no, that one did double, so that is on track there. And then, of course, the time before that was way back on over here. This one obviously doubled as well. So the thing is that in less than a month, this bottom price for the to produce Bitcoins is going to double from 30,000 to basically 60,000. Now, I would add that the reason that this is important is that, well, if you've never really seen Bitcoin close consistently on higher term timeframes below the bottom side of that of that basement price to produce Bitcoin. So again, it's going through it here, even on the Rona dump, it caught the low of that. In the FTX dump, kind of caught the low of that as well. There were a few days traded below, that's fine, but no consistent, very, very high term time frame closures below. Again, same thing over here. So my point is that the first sort of major indication, perhaps coming up relatively soon, would be if you start to see Bitcoin close below $60,000. Now, as of right now, what does that essentially imply to me? It essentially implies that if you run with this model as, as legitimate, which in my experience, it's proven, or sorry, it's innocent until proven guilty. No, it's correct until proven wrecked. And in this case, when that does jump up to $60,000, that's going to suggest that, really anywhere around that sort of number, again, it might dip a little bit below, that's fine, would likely be a very, very long-term opportunity. And in fact, as of right now, with Bitcoin trading at 68,400 and a low thus far of 65.5, that is realistically like 7-8% away from $60,000 even. So I would say, how cute do you want to get? That's a question for you to answer. But my main proposition would be that, hey, the first major indication of this becoming a macro cycle top would be if you start to see Bitcoin trade and close higher term timeframes below, a little bit below $60,000. Again, you can get wicks below, that's fine, just no closures on higher term timeframes consistently. You do see a few over here. Again, that's fine, but this is really only like 1 day, maybe 2 days, and very quickly reverted back up to it. So that would be the first major way. The second way is a very simplistic way of looking at things, but simplistic does not mean bad in my experience. It just means that it's simple, which is good. I mean, it's easy to identify, and that would be going off of the daily and weekly trend. So this has worked actually in all prior cycles for Bitcoin. I'll actually turn this off as well, but if you go to the weekly especially, anytime that we have seen a weekly reversal for Bitcoin, that is actually marked the end of the cycle. Does it get you out at the exact top? No. But if you are a long-term person, you don't need to get out the exact fucking top, because should have made your money, should have made like 50 to 70% along the way if you're capturing that trend. But of course, that first lower high over here in 2018, that was a big warning signal. First lower high over here in 2014, same thing. Same thing over here, same thing over here as well. And all of these were essentially signals of macro reversal. And then, of course, the big one over here and the last one as well. And then that, coupled with the daily trend, does have an extremely high probability in playing out that way. In fact, the daily obviously leads first, so the daily will reverse first, and then it's time to be watching the weekly. And when you see both of those reverse, that's when market cycle is likely turning. But you can even see in this past cycle right here for the daily didn't even really put it in any legitimate downtrend until the market kind of had that first topping back over here in May of 2021. That's when we start to see consistent lower lows and lower highs. Until then, pretty much the whole way up, it was just higher highs, higher lows. Things were quite simple, actually. And even in 2017, I think it was actually kind of the same. Yeah. More or less the same here, maybe a little bit less obvious, but still, I would say more or less the same. But again, when the daily trend shifts to the downside and you see lower lows and lower highs, or especially the lower lows for one, that would be the first major warning signal, and then the weekly trend is the one that confirms it. So if you see those two things plus this chart over here start to trade and close below $60,000, which naturally these are gonna kind of collude with each other. Like you'd kind of have to get that in order to even have a daily reversal right now. I mean, for what it's worth, the daily time frame, I mean, where's the last higher low? It's like right here. That's at $50,000 basically. Where's the last weekly higher low? I mean, I don't even know if I'd count this as a higher low right here, but I guess this would be the last reasonable one at $40,000. So Bitcoin would have like a long way left to do that. Now, realistically, it'd probably look something different than that, because first it would like come down, set in a higher low right here, then try to rally up, then sit in that lower high, and then come down. And when it crashes below that one, that's probably the first major warning signal. But as it stands right now, that's how it would be. So I thought that was also like of interest. So what is my point here? Bitcoin has a lot of leeway before really any of that kind of stuff comes into an issue to begin with. Or at least that's my opinion. And again, I want to reiterate that my overall opinion is that this is unlikely to happen. I do think that the market cycle continues to the upside, probably over the next year. And yeah, anyways, so let's now get into the lower term timeframes relative to what we just spoke about. First things first, we'll go into the daily time frame. We're looking at the daily HPDR bands. It's likely to be getting a bounce. Let me go over here to the index. likely to be getting a bounce off the bottom side of the 61.8 level, coming in from this weekend's continuation of that dump. That's kind of what's happening right now. Does Bitcoin test back up towards the 38.2 level? I don't know, probably. Again, no real strong opinions on the current price action. I mean, this is kind of a good area for a bounce. At the same time, I don't have super strong opinions on this one. HPRO is positioned to the downside. Volatility is rising. So technically speaking, it does suggest that this bounce probably isn't the bounce to be waiting for. And realistically, here's what I would have a strong opinion on in the short term. If Bitcoin can reclaim the median on the daily, which is 72,800 now, and we've seen that about that same number pop up pretty much this whole last 4 or 5 days now. As long as Bitcoin's below there, okay. Correction is still on and can still lead lower towards 60,000 bucks, maybe even a little bit below that. If Bitcoin starts to reclaim that number, let's just call it 72.5 basically. I would start to switch around to saying, hey, next lower high is in, or higher low is in. Bad slip of the tongue there. And upwards and onwards is the name of the game. So that'd be my major area to be aware of for like kind of confirming continuation. On top of that, daily stochastic oscillator is still positioned to the downside as long as Bitcoin's below 73,000 bucks. So, again, more likely to be corrective in the short term. But the longer that Bitcoin does, we have kind of like the same thing that we had like a couple weeks ago. The longer that Bitcoin goes sideways here, the more and more that this is going to start to imply that this is the next higher low, just above 60,000 bucks. Until then, risk does remain to the downside as long as Bitcoin's below, let's call it 72.5 on a closing basis. Bitcoin can reclaim that, probably game on, or at least another try higher into the 70,000s, 77 to 78,000 bucks, probably likely at that point. Anyways, what else do we have? I think that's basically it. Don't have any updates on this over here. Yeah. It's actually probably about to close this trade, so it is going to be a slight gain. If you have been following this strategy, it's like the simplest strategy ever. It's pretty hilarious, but simple is not bad. Simple is not bad. The strategy that I'm running myself is actually, I would say, more on the simplistic side as well, and it's been pretty damn good to me. But I would say that in this case, we have seen this strategy, which has just under a 53% strike rate, to play out when 1, 2, 3, 4, probably going on 5 times right here, assuming that things just close anywhere here or higher. And this will be a very slight win, but it is a win nonetheless. Again, I guess if I want to say anything, maybe of value here, if you were following this setup, is that if you were playing this, and again, we go over the strategy tester and we look at the average winning trade at, 5% or so, we kind of already saw that hit, on that first move up. It just didn't hit the actual take profit on the indicator itself. So, in my opinion, at least in my experience, it's like, hey, you're hitting the average pretty much right after the signal was given. Take the money and run. And, realistically, you could have, if you wanted to, you could have repositioned again and, maybe taken this smaller win over here. In my opinion, that's a better way to be trading. But again, this all comes down to preference. There's no real right or wrong way to do things. Right or right way to do things. Jesus Christ, man. Can't fucking speak. But yeah. Again, this service is the Krown Quant automation, which you can use to set up and backtest basically any strategy that you can come up with, as well as, just iterate off of the strategy templates that we put out, or that I put out, I should say. And you can backtest things, get automatic results like this. You can even automate the trades to be executed for yourself as well. There's a link to that service in the description below, and there's also a big discount, the biggest discount that will ever run ever for this service going on right now too. And you can just find out more information down there if you're so interested. If you're not, if you're like most normal people, all good, all fucking good. And we'll end things right there. As always, I want to wish you the best of best. Take care, much love, and tomorrow's a very special day, assuming that nothing changes. Mr. Pizzino will be joining us on a live stream, which I'm very, very excited about. And we might even do another live stream on Friday as well, assuming things go well. On Friday's stream, probably not with Mr. Pizzino, but tomorrow the P-Man is joining, and I'm looking very much forward to it. You can find a link to that on Twitter. Just go harass Jason and let him know that Krown sent you, and you smell like a fucking pizza. So with all that said, I want to wish you the best. Much love to everyone out there, as well as Mr. P, and we'll see you tomorrow. Take care, and see you soon.